Who's eating good served by Applebee's? That was Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
He kicks off our list. He's got the Texans, and he had a big game last week against the Jets, guys. The question is, Matthew, is he finally back to being a locked-in wide receiver one? This has been a disappointing season for Tyreek Hill.
I think he is. Maybe not locked in, maybe like, sort of like tied in, like
no sauce in
loosely,
this game.
loosely
With
tied,
string,
loosely,
as opposed to
yeah,
chain.
exactly. Here's what I think the positives are, right? So, season highs in targets, receptions, and fantasy points last week. He's scored in 4 of the last 5 games. And Tua has looked better just to the eye test. This offense looks like we expected it to look. Tua looks a lot better. He looks good, right? Back-to-back 20-point games for the first time this year, as we mentioned. And I like the fact that he's playing Houston. This should be a high-scoring game against the Texans. The game is in Houston as well. The over-under is 47 in this one as well. Over the last month, he's the 6th best wide receiver in fantasy football. So, yes, he is back to being a locked-in wide receiver one for me.
Yeah, I'm locking it in as well. You know the crazy thing about this, too, Matthew? Over the last 3 weeks, Tua's thrown at least 40 passing attempts in every single game. That's good for Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, and Jonnu Smith. So you like that. In that same span, he's averaging almost 340 passing yards per game. So, yes, Tyreek is back. The Dolphins' offense is back. And I do, too, expect this game to be a shootout with the Texans.
Yeah, Texans play a ton of man coverage as well, which famously is good news for Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who both cook man coverage.
Jay, how about Rachaad White? He's got the Chargers. Just when he was left for dead, Bucky Irving gets hurt, and the volume increases for Rachaad White. He has the good day with 25 fantasy points last week. If Bucky Irving plays, can you still start Rachaad White? Because the obvious answer is we know what he does when Bucky Irving's hurt.
Yeah, so he's a monster if Irving is out. If Irving does play, he has been surprisingly okay if Irving is played. It's not like the bottom falls completely out. A matchup against the Chargers, expect should be close. Don't think game script should get away from them. And he just looked better and more explosive. I understand it was against the Raiders, but to finish as RB3 is very positive last week. So, I think that Rachaad White, I still think he is viable even if Irving does play.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's gotten 4 receiving touchdowns during this stretch, which has sort of boosted his points per game. So I don't know how sustainable that is. He's my running back 29 this week, so I have him as a low-end flex, kind of a touchdown-dependent flex. But he has been scoring. The offense has looked good. With Chris Godwin out, they've tried to get contributions from a bunch of different people. You've mentioned, Sterling Shepard and Jalen McMillan. But ultimately, Mike Evans, the running backs, they don't want Bucky Irving to be the entire guy. And so, since week 7, he's still averaging 12 touches a game. He's still going to get double-digit touches, even if Bucky Irving is fully healthy. And it sounds like Irving at the moment is going to go. He's working off to the side today, but so maybe he gets, instead of 12 touches, 14, because maybe Bucky's not 100% but wants to go. So, again, low-end touchdown-dependent flex, but I get it.
Yeah, he's still playing around 50% of the snaps, even though Bucky Irving has edged him in that. They kind of flip-flopped.
Yep.
He's still playing enough. You mentioned his touches. His last 2 full games with Bucky Irving, he had 12 carries, 37 in a touchdown. A week before that, 11 carries for 76. So he's getting the ball enough to be considered in the flex spot.
A deeper cut here, Lawrence. Juwan Johnson was tight end 3 last week. He's really the only guy in this Saints offense right now. Is he a viable option for the fantasy playoffs? Because what they're going to be dealing with at quarterback is a significant downgrade.
That's the part you kind of worry about, but also, too, Connor, the offense is going to run different without Taysom Hill. It's a different type run, obviously, because you don't have that piece that you can move all around the formation. Taysom Hill being out in Week 13 led to 7 targets for Juwan Johnson. That's the most he's had this whole season. So he is viable. Always check the matchups, but again, this is the tight end position we're talking about, where there's been one guy in Brock Bowers who's been consistent. You could say Trey McBride too, who's been consistent for the most of the season. So
Bowers has been great 2 of the last 3, though.
Really tough week last week. Yeah.
Look, you know me. I love Juwan Johnson. He's part of the championship-winning squad of Live at Noon on the Cock last year. And, I used him last week in a bye week situation with Zach Ertz on a bye with and all my other guys beat up. I had to use Juwan Johnson as my tight end. And believe it or not, David Njoku was a flex last week. was able to be victorious, though. There you go, and secure that second seed. So I love Juwan Johnson, as you know this. Here's my concern, guys. That offense has looked awful, right? And the 3 games that Carr missed earlier this season, obviously they had more healthy guys back then, but in the 3 games that Derek Carr missed, weeks 6 through 8, he averaged under 7 fantasy points per game. And you mentioned this matchup about, Lawrence, you said always check the matchups. Well, the matchup this week is against my Washington Commanders, who've had 2 weeks to prepare for the Saints. By the way, this year, Commanders allow the 6th fewest receptions to opposing tight ends, the 8th fewest yards. It's not a great matchup. He is a touchdown-dependent tight end, and aren't they all? Yeah. But I'm at tight end 18. I just think low total for this Saints offense. If I'm banking on a touchdown-dependent tight end, there's probably some other guys out there, but he does have a pulse. Most tight ends that have a pulse are rostered in every league. So Juwan Johnson's likely out there in a lot of leagues. He's entirely touchdown-dependent, but he does at least have a pulse.
Juwan Johnson or Freiermuth?
Oh.
Freiermuth.
I will go
Freiermuth is safer. I mean, this New Orleans quarterback
just
situation
because
can bottom you out.
I feel better about Russell Wilson than the Saints quarterback, and Freiermuth also without George Pickens, more of a,
narrow,
more of a narrow target share. What?
Russell Wilson. He might be Russell Wilson's number 1 option.
Exactly. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.